All right, so I'm really excited for today's conversation. We're going to talk about a lot of things that have to do with entrepreneurship and business, and also the issue of multi-potentialism. And I'm not just here alone, but I'm excited that we have a very special guest. Edgar is with us, and I'm going to introduce him before he does the introduction. And I'm so excited that he's here with us on the show. Can you please just say something before we commence, Edgar?
Hey, how's it going, you guys? How's it going?
Mm-hmm. What's is it like when you hear the statement of a jack of all trades, master in none? What comes to your mind?
Jack of all trades, master of none is something that I live by. When I was younger, I met a really great mentor, an officer that I used to work with by the name of Ira Coffee. And one day he said, always become marketable in your life. Whatever you do, make sure you go to a job and that you're marketable.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of jack of all trades, I think of somebody that is good in multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say necessarily doesn't master something, but continues to learn. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I fell into that category, very, very, very early into my career.
Wow, that's really amazing. So, there are a lot of concepts like currently in the world that we're living in now. There is an issue of specialization, whereby someone has to probably get a specialty, maybe in the university or something like that, and
Mhm.
it usually puts people in a space where they're thinking about just one thing, one career path. What do you think about that? Does in our current world we have got a vast number of opportunities. Do you think that's the right path to take, or what's your idea with regards to this?
No, I disagree with that. I know that you're in a different country than the United States, and to kind of help your audience understand is in the United States, there's this belief to go through kindergarten through 12th grade, and then
Mm,
you should have figured out what you want to do for the rest of your life before you go to college.
mm-hmm,
In order for you to get funding to go to college, you need to have a declaration in your major.
mm-hmm,
Now, I disagree with the point of having to know what you want to do for the rest of your life in a summer, right? You graduate, typically it's around May or June, and then colleges start, end of August, beginning of September.
mm-hmm,
And I disagree with that. There's no time frame to learning what you want to do. And
mm,
I'll give you myself for an example.
mm,
When I first started college, I started at community college, and I wanted to do criminal justice, and so I
mm-hmm,
pursued that degree. And soon as I graduated, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this forever. So I
mm,
switched over to my bachelor's
mm.
with a major in photography, dual minors in entrepreneurship and business administration.
Oh,
And then as soon as I graduated from that, I said, well, that's no longer a challenge.
mm,
And now I'm doing my master's degree in information technology with a minor in cybersecurity.
oh. Now, just to talk about your work, because like previously, I had to look at your work, some part of like the videos that you're shooting, like it was all well done. Starting from the website of your business, like I was looking at how neat and simple, but I like the design and the whole concept, which was just right there. Like it was something that was really great. And have you been merging all the skills that you have been gathering like through your life to actually put them together and put out something out there that people would look out to? And how did you do that? Like how did you merge all these different disciplinaries and make made out something?
Well, the number one thing in anything that I do is discipline. Like you said, it's not only physical but mentally charging. Especially when you do everything that I do. I started my business as just a photographer that
Mm,
led to adding on videography, digital design, graphic design, um, web design. There was so much that it
oh,
encompassed, but I knew that was the goal from the very beginning. And if you
mm,
don't have a goal, if you don't have a set goal of where you're going to be at, you're
mm,
most likely to stay in this comfort state of mind. A lot of people in today's world, they work a 9 to 5.
mm,
and that's it. They're happy with it. In your country it may be different, but in the United States, a 9 to 5 is common for the day-to-day American. They work from 9 in the morning to 5 p.m., and
mm,
then they're free for the weekends and they have the nights off. Entrepreneurship is nothing like that. So if you don't have the discipline to stay up till midnight, to wake up, like today, I I stopped working at 5 in the morning, and here I am, doing this interview with you. It's that discipline. I mean, I only slept 3 hours, but that's what we live for. You have to have that discipline, that final goal. I never not had a goal. It just so happened that a lot of the goals happened sooner, but that's
mm.
because discipline occurred from the very beginning and was the foundation of not only my business but me as a person and an entrepreneur.
Wow. That's really something that's really true. And usually most of the times the problem that comes in is we have grown up believing in the whole concept of finishing whatever you're doing, you start looking for a job. But according to how you have explained, it seems like in your mind you weren't thinking about getting a job, but you are always thinking about creating something for yourself as a business, as an independent person. And what do you think is one of the tools apart from focus and setting goals? What are some of the principles that you think someone can be able to use so that they don't focus on the job, but they focus on creating employment or creating a company or an entity that is in turn going to create jobs?
Oh, that's a good question, and I guess it could really go different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Aside from discipline, I think is having a and a goal, I guess, and not having a goal and something else to encompass would have to be determination. And the reason I say determination, because when you go through entrepreneurship, building a business, creating employment for other people, is
Mm,
that you have to roll with the punches, right?
mm,
When you start entrepreneurship, there is no backing. There's no boss sitting in the room that's going to write you a check when you get sick. There is no bank that's just going to give you money just because you say you're an entrepreneur. You have to build a backing.
very
And if you're
true.
not determined in the sense of what your ultimate goal is, and you're not determined to get through the hard times just as well as celebrate those good times, there
Mm,
is no there is no way to complete this. I can
very
tell
true.
you this: the closest thing that happened to me, and this actually occurred Friday. I
Mm-hmm,
helped an entrepreneur and a business friend that started his business 3 years ago, back in
mm-hmm,
2018.
mm-hmm,
He went from having mobile auto repair, and his goal was always to get a shop.
mm-hmm.
And we've tried over the years, and it was hard. We couldn't do it. And Friday, we can say we finally have a shop, um,
Wow.
which we sat here and we just kind of took it in because 3 years ago, or back
Mm,
in 2018, when we started this journey with him, he was
mm-hmm,
paying me by bringing me burritos. I was doing his back end bookkeeping. I was helping him structure his LLC, his EIN, which are things that are necessary to having a business here in the US. And
mm.
we never knew when this was going to occur. We actually didn't
Wow.
even know it was going to occur on Friday.
Oh.
Um, we actually just came back from that, and that moment of seeing him go from doing mobile auto repair outside of a little truck
Yeah.
to having a fleet of two Ford trucks and a tow truck for mobile auto repair to now having a shop
Oh, yeah.
was all determination. You can't buy that anywhere. You can't be given it. You have to have that determination to roll with the punches, to learn how to be upset, how to overcome it, how to look fear in the eyes and say, this is my comfort space. Because as soon
Mm,
as you become comfortable with fear,
mm,
everything else falls in line. There is there
mm,
there really is no other place. I've learned to accept fear. I've learned to
mm,
overcome it and learned to make it my comfort zone. And now when I make decisions, when I see my business growing, when I'm scared that
mm,
I might not be able to make payroll, I'm comfortable. I know I'm gonna go hustle out and make that money to make sure my employees are paid, my bills are paid, and this business keeps running because this is everything that I have. Some
mm.
people are willing to just give it all up the day it gets bad. You can't
Yeah.
do that in entrepreneurship. You have to be willing to say, you know what, I'm going to go cry for 5 minutes,
Mm.
and then I'm going to come out determined, ready to know what I'm going to do next to make sure that this business survives.
Wow. Wow. You really have put out some very powerful points there. Like I'm just here, like you have actually energized me, you know. It's really interesting how you have put it out there, and that's really, really true. I agree with you. And I'm intrigued by the point where you mentioned that you were actually there to help this friend of yours. And it has made me really see something that's important from your explanation about the importance of social capital, because people are out there looking for money, huge sums of money, but they forget the simplest resource, which is social capital, friends, people that are willing to help you. And I'm really curious to hear your view about social capital. Do you think it's something that really matters? And how do you think, you, from your point of view, this has helped you or you have benefited from this?
So yeah, so I think so. It's hard. It's hard when it comes to outside investors, angel investors, like you're saying, social capital for a business. In
Mm,
order for that to happen in a large form, you have to have a business that's going to grow or has a huge goal of an IPO, what we call it here, which is going into the stock trade. And a lot of companies can't raise money unless that's their final goal, because that's where investors want to be. That's where they make their money.
mhm,
Now, there is what's called angel investors, and angel investors basically invest a certain amount of money. They don't care about the high end of IPOs. They just care
mhm,
about helping a business, that may not be able to get a loan
mhm,
through a regular bank. And what I kind of never agreed with was
mm,
borrowing money from somebody. I really strongly believe in bootstrapping. My business was bootstrapped from the very beginning.
mhm,
I left a really great job to do this, and I was broke for 3 months. I was broke.
wow,
My now fiance actually paid my bill for 3 months, and she
wow,
took care of it. She said, "You know what? I'm going to take care of your bills. You worry about growing this business." And without
wow.
her, I wouldn't be here. Now, with that being
Mm,
said, social capital, it doesn't devalue a business, but it depends on the business, right? For example,
mm,
my business was photography, and it grew to videography, and that was just bootstrapping. I just needed cameras.
mm,
I put my own credit cards down so that I can purchase the things that I needed to purchase. But not
mhm.
everybody needs to be giving out their equity in their business, because when you
True,
start giving
very
out
true.
equity, right, you start giving out percentage, and sometimes those
Yeah,
percentages can be pretty high. If you
very
go
true.
from, if we look at a business overall for your listeners, a business has 100% equity.
Mhm,
When that equity starts getting broken down, let's say you have three partners,
mhm,
each person gets 33.3%, right?
mhm.
It kind of takes away from you being the sole
That's
sole
right.
business owner,
Mhm,
and have 100% control, because you start giving that control out to two more people on top
mm,
of yourself. Like I'm saying, there is some businesses that have started that need a board of directors, or need multiple owners, because maybe
mm,
one owner is bringing in the money, the other owner is bringing in the knowledge of business,
like,
and that's
mhm,
usually why you generate partners.
mm,
I generally, small businesses, if you can bootstrap it, if you can be financially smart about, your money, investing it where it needs to be, having a return on investment on anything that you own or you purchase for your startup business, you're going to
mm,
go a long way.
yeah.
My business went from losing $6,000 year one, to now, being over $48,000 for the year. I
Mm,
didn't have that. I didn't have a big bank behind me. I didn't have anybody pushing money. I was
mm,
pushing my own. I was putting my own credit cards, doing that, and that's because I always knew that I did not want to share any of what I was creating with anybody else, because I
mm.
didn't know that somebody was going to put in just the same amount of work.
Wow.
Just like school projects, you always have that one person that's like, yeah, let's do this.
Mm,
They do all the work. You have the other person that kind of chips in, does whatever. And then you always have that one person that disappears for the whole thing and comes right at the end, right?
very
And I
true.
never wanted that. I wanted to know that if this business succeeded, was 100% because of me and was
Yeah.
because of nobody else. And I could share this story with people, because my background is, I'm Mexican, and I came
Mhm,
from a Latino background, where I grew up in a neighborhood that was poor, that was drug infested, that everybody believed that every girl would get pregnant at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose not to be part of that. I chose to select myself out and push this business. But
Mm.
like I'm saying, if I had shared that with somebody else, would somebody else work just as hard as I do to make sure that this business thrives? And
Right.
that's what I would say, that getting capital from anybody else other than a bank becomes really hard,
Mm-hmm.
especially in that sense.
Wow, that really makes a lot of sense because exactly how you have put it, someone, the founder, would be so motivated, and in the time of desperation, the person will start looking for investors. They might be either they may even, for example, they may not even have an initial public offering. They may just look maybe for friends, and at the end of the day, their
Yep.
dream or their vision is destroyed just from the start because of the wrong people who are trying to simply even destroy the idea. So, when's the right time? When do you think is the right time for you to actually speak out and share your idea with people? In the initial stage, or when you have already settled your business and it's up and running?
So it truly depends on the business. Every business is going to be different. And so the biggest example I can give you is for myself as a photographer, there's a lot of resources out there that can teach me how to be a photographer, how to be a business owner, everything from YouTube to Udemy to Coursera, all these
Mhm.
other softwares that give you these ins and that are pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, very
Um,
true.
there is some businesses that I believe should not come off the ground until everybody is in line and everybody's doing a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say this, for example, if you're building a software
Mm-hmm.
or an application or something of that sort, for me, I'm a business owner. I know how to run businesses. I know how to do this. And recently, I started learning coding, but I don't have that experience that somebody else might be able to bring to the table,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I might have this great idea and I might be able to sell it, but if I can't complete it because I don't have a partner that's great in software engineering or doing anything that's in data or servers, it doesn't make sense to try to push something that you can't create by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, if you really need two partners, you need a partner, you need to sell that idea to those partners so they jump on. So you got to tell them.
Yeah.
But if for example you can do it on your own, you can learn it by yourself, and you have the determination to do it for, you know, putting myself as an example, I went and I just self-taught myself for the most part on photography. Um, then I can just do it on my own. There's no really timeline for that, you know.
Mhm.
But it goes back to that each business, I guess you have to really evaluate it on an individual level. You can't massively just say, oh, any business should, just go out and start talking about the idea or hold off. Each business is going to be a little bit different.
Very true. Now we have this whole concept of technology in our time. We have the issue of artificial intelligence, for example, talking about, for instance, your field. You do partly video shooting. I'm sure you also do video editing. You create videos and helping brands market their content out there. Now we have the issue of artificial intelligence. We have the issue of automated softwares and all that stuff. How do you think one can still remain relevant in such a time when we have all these tools and softwares?
So right now we're kind of living in a weird generation in the sense that um, we have this older generation, for
Mm-hmm,
example, in the United States that was born right at the end of World War II, and what they knew wasn't what we know today.
mm-hmm,
Back then, it was labor intensive. You went to a library to research things. There was no AI, there was no phones, there was no TikTok, there was nothing.
mm-hmm.
The dot-com boom in 2000, things massively changed, right? Where
Yeah.
all these companies started replacing stuff with phones, and they started replacing the customer service with answering machines. There was
Mm-hmm,
a big disconnect. And now, if we look after that, and we look, right around the recession time, people
mm-hmm.
wanted to talk to a human, and less has it become a matter of trying to rely on technology, because we have seen that technology will go down when it wants to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is 100% set. There is none of that. If we look at the recent outage for Facebook, a couple weeks ago, Not
Mm-hmm.
only did Facebook go down, but Instagram, WhatsApp,
Very true.
all of their
Mm-hmm.
Oculus, everything went down.
Mm-hmm.
People are no longer saying, "Oh, we're going to focus on just using technology and rely on technology heavily." They're
Mm-hmm.
actually using it as an assistance, which is that's how it should be used.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stay relevant in this generation? You got to be personable. You can't. It's not about sitting behind a computer and hoping that the computer does it for you. Nobody's gonna. No computer is gonna have feelings.
Mm-hmm.
No computer is gonna be able to feel how you feel when you create a brand, when you talk to somebody, when you sell yourself, when you sell your business. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do that. AI has become a big controversy as well.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Photoshop, which is something we use a lot, is
Mm-hmm.
do Photoshop people to make them look perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that becomes an ethical question that you need to create as a business owner. My business, and I've told my employees this, we do not create an ideology, behind society. We don't sit here and shoot models and then curve them out and give them a bigger
Mm-hmm.
booty or bigger boobs or whatever it may be. We don't do that because then
Mm-hmm.
we're contributing to this idea that AI should create
Yeah.
what we think society should create. I have that ethical stance that we don't do that here.
Mm-hmm.
There are some companies that do focus strongly on AI.
Yeah.
Google focuses hugely on AI, and they just completed what's called quantum supremacy. So they have a
Mm-hmm.
supercomputer that can do algorithms that would take 20-25 years to complete. They can do it in seconds, if not minutes. And that I understand in the sense that they're actually helping us as humans be able to access data a lot faster,
Mm-hmm.
which even if we go back 20 years, that wasn't possible, right? You would
Yeah.
have to go through a library and you would have to go through 30 books to get that information. That's fine. I believe that AI has actually improved
Mm-hmm.
the access to different things, the information that we get to. But in the sense of a business, I don't think AI will ever completely take over anything because it goes back to that. They can't sell, they can't feel,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't make human decisions,
Oh,
right? Which only we can.
yeah, very true. I love the way you have put it out. You have talked about the issue of ethics. You have talked about feelings, how
Yeah.
AI cannot have all those positions because people now are like you have put it. We are having this all these different kinds of talks that are surrounding this topic, and a lot of people are living in fear to say, "Will I have my job? Will I have? Will
Yes.
I be able to do what I'm able to do now? My job be replaced by a robot and stuff like that." And it was quite interesting whereby I see this robot is actually selling coffee, and I'm like, okay, so these people who are selling this coffee have been replaced. And it's quite that at that point where you see people now wondering to say, will my job still be there? So I'm so impressed by the issues of ethics and the issues of feelings, because these are some things that the robot will not really have. So how often do you think you as a person, according to your experience, how often do you research? How do you research every day? You do read every day, or do you have to read a book every day just to be updated in your field? Because I'm sure you are looking at things how they are changing every day, new softwares that you can use, new tools that you can use. How often do you keep yourself updated with the new technology?
Yeah, you have to stay up to date daily. Technology, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, wasn't as rapid as it is today.
True.
If we look at the dot-com boom that really kind of set the tone for the next 20 years, 21 years where we're at now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these companies thought the internet would go down. I mean, there was that big conspiracy theory that computers will go down in 2000. They were just all going to shut down, and that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of talks of a lot of different things, and you can't continue to sit there and believe that and be like, oh, I'll learn it next year or next year. By the time that you get around to it, it's old technology now, right?
Oh,
If we look the at the global structure of economies, of business, of countries, is that technology is no longer changing from this year to next year, right? It's expanding from day to day, if not from minute to minute now, because everybody's trying to become the next big thing. The
yes.
biggest thing in the United States right now is all these billionaires trying to go to space.
Yeah.
right? That wasn't a thing 20 years ago. That wasn't even a thing 5 years ago, right?
Mm,
You have to remember is that if we don't stay current, you fall behind. And
mm,
I've seen this happen to a lot of people that are in the older generation is that, oh, I'm going to keep this business forever. They fail to see that that business wasn't there forever. And we look back at, going back to that generational differences, a lot of the
mm,
baby boomers after the World War II was that they were stuck in the factories. They loved the factories. That was the American dream. You got a house, the white picket fence, you had two kids, and you were
mm,
going to retire from that. Come 2007, the recession, a lot of these companies shut down, and a lot of
yeah.
these people were not given the retirements. And guess what? Now you had in 2008, 2009, you had people in their 40s, 50s, even 60s going to McDonald's and flipping burgers because they didn't have a backup plan. They didn't have anything to fall back on. And by
Mm,
the time they get to that age, and it's just scientifically proven, is that you can't learn that fast, right? So what we
very,
can learn at the age of anywhere from, whenever we're cognitive, 12 to the age of, 30, you're able to learn things really quickly.
very
For
true.
example, I'm a good example, right? I have a photography background and I now work in cybersecurity.
Mm,
That's a big difference, right? In a year, I was able to learn what I needed to learn to be able to succeed in cybersecurity now. As you can
mm,
see behind this right here is actually my cybersecurity certification.
mm,
I, I, I self-taught that. I read a book and I self-taught myself and I passed the test.
mm,
If I was 30, 35, 40, it wouldn't have been that easy. And I actually see this in a lot of forums is you have these guys that have been in the IT world for 34 years, 20 years, 25 years, and they can't pass the exam because they've been on that trajectory for so long that they felt that they were just going to be able to clock in, take the test, and they're going to be fine.
mm,
Right? If you don't keep up with technology, if you don't keep up with the day-to-day changes that are happening in the world and technology, the decisions that are being made for a product that may come out in a year, then you're
mm,
always going to be behind. You're never going to stay ahead. I personally, my habit is to read a book. Now, it's
mm,
not always on technology, but a book about self improvement. How can I make better habits? How can I make bad habits go away? And then I actually do stay on top of the news on technology just because that's my field.
yeah.
Um, if you're a business owner, you kind of have to dip into everything. One of
Mm-hmm,
the biggest right now is it's not technology, but people. We have a labor shortage in the United States right now.
mm-hmm,
There's so much work, but there's so little workers, right? So that's not even technology based, that's human based. So you have to
very,
be able to look at the different aspects of society and how it's going to affect you, your
wow.
business, and the future of your business.
Mm, that's really, really powerful. So what I usually love doing is before I have an interview, like I usually ask my audience, some people, just to like write down some questions, a few questions that they would like me to ask, like they would like me to ask you before, like we close. So one of the questions that was interesting was that I have a problem with speaking out. I really want to be a part of the global economy, and I'm scared of putting myself out there. I think I'm so shy and I just can't really manage. How do I overcome this? And how do I manage to put myself out there? What's your comment and what's your answer or response to this question?
Uh, so this is going to go back to the beginning of this podcast.
Mm,
Become okay with fear. Become okay with being uncomfortable. Nothing in this world is going to come to your door.
mm,
Whoever this listener is, whoever this person is, I'm talking directly to you. If you want to succeed in speaking out, the first thing to do is do it some
mm,
way, somehow, whether it's posting on social media, whether it's posting on your own Facebook or whatever social media platforms you use, just do it. And I can't say that enough. And I'm pretty sure you heard that before. You've probably heard other entrepreneurs just say, go do it. And realistically, that's what it comes down to. A
mm,
lot of people wait to create this idea of perfection before they go out and do it, and that
mm,
perfection is never going to come unless you start. The idea is to start. That's
mm,
it. Everything else is going to fall behind that.
mm,
When we look at, for example, I'm going to give you my biggest story is that I picked up a camera one day, not knowing where it's going to take me, and I
wow.
said, you know what? I'm going to post it. I opened up a social media on Instagram. I didn't know where it was going to take me. Here we are 4 years later, going on
Mm,
my 5 year of business. I have 2 employees, a studio, an office. uh, I got everything that I need, and I
mm.
all I did was did it. I just did it.
Wow.
Little, there's so much power to just those words. Just go do it.
Mm.
There's nowhere else you can go wrong. I mean, the only thing that can go wrong is that nobody listens. But
Nobody
you
listen.
keep pushing, and you have to keep pushing, because that's the power of entrepreneurship. It goes back to that determination, setting up a
Terminate.
goal, and having that discipline to just say, you know what, F it. I'm gonna go and do this. I'm gonna go and work on myself. This is what I want to do, and this is
Yeah.
where I'm gonna start by simply doing it. And that's what I would say to that listener.
Thank you for that. Then another one very interesting is my peers think I'm a medical student and they just look at me to be a medical doctor or a specialist, but I have multiple number of interests and I feel like I'm a multi-potentialite. What should I do to not mind and focus on in putting myself in a sphere where my friends don't mind my field but see me as a multi-potentialite?
Uh, so to clarify, they're a doctor or studying to be a doctor.
It's saying medical student, but seems
Okay.
like he's a medical student, but the people view this person as a medical student and not as a multitasker. So she's like, how do I make myself uh be out there as someone who can do multiple things and not be put in a
Oh,
box like this person is only a doctor or something like that?
okay. So if you're a medical student right now, that's what you're going to be seen as. And here's where the problem doesn't get solved right now. It's going to get solved over time. As
Mm,
I go back to the beginning of this episode, when I talk about bootstrapping, you're putting all of your extra money into a business.
mm,
If he's a medical student right now, I'm not sure how where that person is, how it works for school, but I know it can be expensive. So the number one
mm-hmm,
thing is to continue finishing through your school and start making money, right? When you become a doctor, whatever it may be, you're gonna generate enough money to then
mm,
go and start buying businesses, starting businesses. And you can't be upset that people see you that way. When I
mm-hmm,
first started this business, I was only a photographer. Now I
mm,
own a business, I have employees, and it's a full-on creative company. People still think I'm just a photographer, and that's
mm,
okay. I don't discourage that, because that's what I started as. And yes,
mm,
people don't see it that way. And you as a person have to be the one to sell that. If people
mm,
only see you reading books, medical books all the time, oh, that's all you're doing, and then you're studying, that's fine. You have to accept that. You can't break away from that, because that's your schooling.
mm-hmm,
Now, if you're a person that is going to school, but then you're just kind of lazy all the time, that's how people are going to see it. You're lazy, right? They're not going to believe in what you're doing. My
mm-hmm,
friends see everything that I do, and they're like, "Damn, he's an entrepreneur. He's a business owner." People that maybe saw me when I first started till now, they still just think I just do photos. I just do photography. But you can't be angry about that. You have to then
mm,
sell yourself to be shown that you're more than that. So that's what I would say is take that time to let that build and accept it, and start building off of it. Don't care about other people's opinions either. They don't pay your bills. At the end of the day, if you know that you go out and you hustle, and you're a medical student, and you're doing what you can to create a business down the road, if you know that you're doing it, and you know you're hustling and you're working and you're doing 30 hours a day, accept it. They're not paying your bills. Stop caring what other people think about you. And one day when you blow up, just be like, look, I told you so, and shove it in their face. That's the same way that I've done it. A lot of people did not believe in my business when I first started it. Now that they see me and they see the success that I have, they're just kind of mind blown, right? But that's
yeah,
that's part of entrepreneurship.
very true. Yeah, most of the other questions we have talked about them. Yeah. So just to wrap up, since we're supposed to last for about 40 minutes, I'm curious to hear like your conclusion, your last words about the whole concept. Because this thing, like we talked about the jack of all trades, but master of none. This is a very Interesting statement that continues to affect a lot of people, and people are living in mediocrity because of such kind of statements that I can only do this, and they are stuck in that thing, even in as much as it is bad, but because they feel like I can only do one thing. So I just want to hear your last remarks of what someone or the audience would go out with, like out there knowing to say how they're just supposed to switch off that mind to escape from this whole statement. Your last remarks on that. What are your words?
I'm gonna give you the same advice that I was given years ago by that Officer Ira Coffee, and I will mention his name forever. Become marketable.
Mm,
Whatever it is you do, whatever business you grow, make sure that you have a plan B through Z, and then a one, two, three. Have a
mm-hmm,
plan for everything that you do. As an entrepreneur myself right now, I don't stop learning, and you can't. Don't feel like a bachelor's or an associate's, a master's degree is going to give you anything or it's going to be handed to you. You got to go out and work for it.
mm,
Determination, setting goals, and being disciplined is going to get you far in life. If you can say, you know what, instead of spending my money going out with friends and clubbing tonight, and I'm going to invest it in my business, you're already on the right step. Secondly,
wow.
if you're going to create a habit, it takes 2 minutes. Do it for 2 minutes. Read for 2 minutes.
Mm.
That's your goal. Make your goals easier to accomplish, and remember that nothing happens overnight. It's going to take time, and you have to learn to be okay with it. Unfortunately, humans want a quick return of investment. Sometimes it's going to be long term, but just know that it's going to be worth it.
Wow. So if someone out there is thinking to say, wow, I'm really touched by his words, how can they be able to reach out to you? How can they be able to connect with you? Or maybe follow you maybe on Instagram or something like that? How can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on the podcast. And you guys, if you feel like talking to me, if you feel like reaching out, feel free to follow e.sierra media on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. We're all over. Feel free to DM me on Instagram and we'll reach out. We'll talk to you guys. I have nothing but time for entrepreneurs that want to reach out to us. If you feel like
Mhm.
following my personal Instagram, it's the Edgar Sierra. That's TheEdgarSierra. And feel free to reach out. And we also have a podcast similar to yours, The Daily Entrepreneur. It's across all platforms, and we do the exact same thing. We follow entrepreneurs from different industries to talk about their stories and how they've come to their success.
Wow. Thank you very much for having this opportunity to talk to you. And I'm so excited because you have really given us a lot of insight. And I look forward to having much more of these great discussions because people and entrepreneurs out there really need this. And I'm happy that we had you.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on today.